Hi there. I had a trip. The trip I want to talk about is kind of strange, weird, bizarre. It was a trip to heaven. Anyway, uh, here's the beginning of my trip. I couldn't really express myself freely, so the reason why I put it into words and I'm reading from text in front of me. Here's the beginning of my trip. Actually, the ticket was free. I don't know. I didn't pay anything. I don't know whether I went or I was taken. I don't know which word I have to use. It's the beginning of my trip. All I have to think is I'm going to describe it. When I came back, the family was expecting me to bring something from those, like some souvenirs. And they were looking for, like in my hand, some suitcases, but they didn't have any suitcases. Carry-on luggage, as they call it, trips. Then they said, where is the album, this thing? Because in that place where I went, they don't allow cameras or even iPhone, nothing. If you're smart, you can capture everything as a snapshot to take it in your psyche and you come back okay. If you cannot take it into your psyche without your presence of mind, then you lost the trip. So anyway, getting back, I'm going to read. Maybe I'm going to be like boring some people. I just tell you the story. Here's the beginning of my trip, which was like one of my odysseys of space. It was an incomparable place with an exceptional delight. I could neither think about the space or think about the time. The word segment is just a metaphor. The word past became just a legend for me. And the word future became an impatience for me. The first thing I saw before I entered paradise was a bridge. I couldn't tell whether this bridge was inside or adjacent to the paradise. I found myself at the end of this bridge where I was told to stop for a moment. They told me this is the place of divestiture. Divestiture. I said, but I don't possess anything in order to me to give it away. They said, in order for you to enjoy the paradise, you have to divest yourself from any hatred, envy, jealousy, and so forth before you enter. Then I looked around and I said, where are those from whom I have to seek forgiveness? All of a sudden I found the silhouette of some people that I can hardly see. I did attempt to shake their hands and hug them, but I couldn't find them. They were a sort of hologram. There was an echo of a voice. I couldn't tell from where it was coming from, whether from within my heart or from outside, but the sound was so gentle that it created the feeling of serenity within me. Friends are brothers and sisters in paradise. The whispering voice continued tenderly. Afterward, I realized that this is a condition for me to liberate myself from bad feelings towards people before entering paradise. When I awoke, I decided to no longer push anybody. And I decided to love everybody. I decided to break the frontiers and think about universality. I went back and I entered the first door. I was surprised by a blossom of a flower with the size of a planet. It was as if there was a volcano from where the magma was ejecting its lava with a spectacular beauty, but there was no fire and no heat. There was an exponential light and increasing gradually. This light could possibly dominate the sun and extent that the sun will disappear in front of it. Actually, there was no sun. All of a sudden, I saw a woman coming from the center of that flower. Her beauty had illuminated the eastern pole to the western one and from the north to the south, but there was no such a dimension. There were no cardinal points. I realized that such a dimension was limited to my vision. A dimension without a dimension. Now consider fluorescent lighting that could annul the presence of a candle, and consider a very powerful high voltage light that could annul the presence of a smaller one. And consider how the sunrise annulled the presence of all the electrical lights of the earthy world. However, the woman I saw residing in paradise annuls the presence of the sun. Actually, there is no sun over there. As it was said, it is just a comparison. The source of the light in paradise is from within and without, indescribable. There was a smile from her face. It was as if the whole universe was smiling at me. It was as if this smile is telling me that there will be no elderliness anymore. It was as if this smile is telling me there is no interruption to the joy anymore. It was as if the smile is telling me there will be no fatigue anymore. It was as if the smile is telling me there will be no sickness anymore. Furthermore, a whispering voice came to my mind as that if these women were to spit in the sea of the terrestrial world, her salivation will transform the salty sea into sweetness. As much as I was or am absorbed in her beauty, as much as I noticed that her blossom was exponentially increasing, that opening had provoked every cell in my body to open up and allow the jolliness to infiltrate my existence. I got lost. I lost myself. I lost my control, and I felt I became her and she became me. By the time I tried to approach her periphery to touch her, there was an echo of a voice telling me, your degree of approach is your degree of submission. Your degree of approach is your degree of passivity. In order to be able to touch her, you had to show how much you had submitted to the sublimity. I realized that her surrounding to me was the reflection of my previous surrendering to the absolute and my passivity with people in the terrestrial world. I can swear that the whiff I caught from her perfume can intoxicate the whole universe and put it in a somnambulistic state and put it to sleep for a century. When I awoke from my reverie, I had a different vision toward women. I had such sympathy towards them that I couldn't believe how wonderful women are and what they really symbolize. I realized that the women represent the universe in reality. They represent the ecosystem in reality. They are the reflection of serenity and jolliness of every spot in this existence. And at the same time, I realized they are the reflection of my surrendering to the sublimity. If women are neglected, the whole nature is jeopardized without anybody's awareness. The next thing I saw after I went back was the throne. It starts going down gradually from what it's supposed to be the top of paradise. And the throne is the source of every pleasure that powers down into paradise, wherein cascades all the rivers, the fruits, the lights, etc. You can feel the location, but yet there is no location. You feel you are being sheltered by, but there is no top and there is no bottom in paradise. In the terrestrial world, I heard about the merciful being above the throne, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arsh istawa, and I thought that God had a location. But here in paradise, I was told how much humanity was naive in terms of localizing His Almighty God. Again, a whispering voice came to my mind that the throne is just a reflection of my mercy. How much the throne is big is how much merciful I was. Then someone asked me about the word mercy. I immediately responded, but then I was told that I was wrong. The word mercy is instead a sympathy that you provide without a prior condition. Like the wind is blowing without condition, or like the water is flowing without condition. And then I realized that the throne powers down its pleasure in paradise according to the mercy we have provided towards our fellow creatures in the terrestrial world. When I woke up, I started to break the fences. I started to eliminate the conditions towards my fellow creatures. Therefore, it is my own throne that I either have to create and worry about, or I neglectfully abandon. But the beauty I absorbed from that vision was so immense that I felt I am still in my dream. And it is better for me to alimент my paradise. The next thing I saw were 2 golden paradises wherein every single item, such as palaces, in cities, furnitures, and dishes, they were all made of gold and are decorated with pearls and crystal. They are built on water. That is whiter than milk and sweeter than honey. There are also 2 other silver paradises wherein every single item, such as palaces, furniture, and dishes, etc., they are all in silver. Meanwhile, I was standing in another paradise at a hypocenter that is called Eden. I was hesitating whether I had to go to the right or to the left, but I then realized that there was neither right nor left. It was just my imagination. Then here comes the whispering voice to my mind. The golden paradise is the reflection of your obligation that you have to fulfill. And the silver paradise is the reflection of the prohibitions that you have to abstain from. I never knew or gave importance to my obligations towards the divinity, but then I realized that actually I was building my own paradise without realizing it, if I wished to do so. Also, I never paid attention to my prohibitions towards the divinity, but again I realized that the architecture over there is very bizarre in the way it is linked to our intentions and actions here in the terrestrial world. There are 4 main rivers in golden, honey in the garden, honey, milk, crystal, and wine. They are all derived from the cascade of the throne, and the throne is energized by there is no God except God. And these 4 rivers are dispersed to an unlimited number of tastes, colors, and odors. These 4 rivers differ from one person to another. These rivers flow side by side with a beautiful and softly murmuring sound that brings music and joy to a person's heart. All of a sudden, I tried to approach one of the rivers, but then found a soft sort of magnetic field preventing me from that approach. I tried to approach the second one. I had the same results of prevention. The same thing happened to the third and the fourth. A lot of questions start popping up to the surface of my conscience. Here comes the whispering voice again. The river of honey is given to the one who sacrificed his harsh moment to help peoples for God's sake. The river of wine is given to one who was conscious about his moments and had done good deeds for the sake of God. The crystal river is given to the one who was honest in his life for the sake of God. And the milky river is given to the one whose hand was white with generosity for the sake of God's as well. When I was in the terrestrial world, these words didn't seem to have any effect on me. After I heard them, in the celestial world, I felt impatience to come down and start putting everything into action. Paradise was so immense. Gosh, God. I couldn't imagine such a vastness. It would take an eternity for a person to visit his own paradise. But yet, I see a person who wants to be somewhere. He is there already. It is as if there was no distance. My God. I see the distance, I see the vastness, but there is no distance being across that is going on. What's going on? Here comes the voice again. Actually, this is just a metaphor. The person in the garden is not controlled by the time or controlled by the space. He controls time and space instead. He can be anywhere in a fraction of a second. I saw a big tree among others. It takes a riding cavalier 100 years maybe to cross the shade cast by that tree that is called Tuba, Shajarat Tuba, which is only one among others. The fruit from that tree, which again is just one among others, offers an exotic, exquisite and delicious stimulation to a person's taste buds. I was told that each time a person takes a bite of it, he discovers a new rapturous taste that is never repeated. وَأُتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهًا. The fruit from that tree is immediately replenished as soon as it is picked. I tried to grasp a fruit from that tree, but there was a sort of magnetic field preventing me, and then here comes the whispering voice again. In paradise, you don't make an effort to grasp the fruit. The fruit comes to your hand instead. This is to show you that the fruit is just the reflection of your sincerity. In your actions towards people, furthermore, the difference in the taste that you find in the same fruit within one tree is the reflection of how your flexibility was with people. I start questioning myself, am I in paradise or not? The various trees are not planted on the ground, but they are instead sheltering from above. That's weird. You can see the branches that looked like crystal with pearls far away, and yet, by the time you approach them, you feel they are giving themselves to you. Unfortunately, it's not in the capacity of our language to fully describe those dimensions. I stayed a while. I couldn't count the time, but it was long enough to see people eating and drinking, but I never saw anybody going for a digestion. All of a sudden, a whispering voice came to my heart as follows. A person's digestive excretion of food is nothing but perfumed sweat that comes out of the whole body. And the reason it will become perfumed, it is the reflection of how much you have shared your food with poor people in a terrestrial world. If you have purified your egoism by charity, your digestive food in paradise would be nothing but perfumed sweat coming out of your body. There is no bathroom, and excuse my language. I was told that the length of time of the pleasure of sex in paradise and its manner cannot be put into words. By respect, they never mentioned anything to me. Speaking about beauty, I was told that in the terrestrial world, it has been reported that the beauty on earth was divided into 3 sections, 94%. 94% of the beauty on earth was given to Joseph, peace be upon him, the son of Isaac, the grandson of Abraham. May the peace and blessing of God be upon them. 3% was given to Sarah, peace be upon her, the wife of Abraham, and 1% was given to the rest of humanity. Wow. Despite this, it seems that almost everybody worships himself or herself in front of a mirror and breaks budgets to buy anti-aging products. Yet, all of these people together don't even equal 1% of the real beauty. In the life of the hereafter, those 3 sections of beauty will be one, and they will be given to every individual while he or she is entering paradise. Or I should say I admired, or I should say I contemplated, or I should say was absorbed by were the kids. I cannot describe their beauty. They look like a jewel. They look like angels. A part of their hair in gold is in gold, the other part is in silver. They play around with a smile and love. There circumambulate the families with all sort of joy and signs of happiness. The first thing I thought about was a wish. I wished if those kids will remain at this age eternally. But then it was as if someone heard my wish and responded with a tender voice, these kids will remain like this forever. I tried to grab them, I tried to hug them, I tried to kiss them, and I tried to sort of possess them. And then here comes a tender voice again with the following statement, these kids are the reflection of your intuition and the reflection of your virginity. In the terrestrial world, how much is the degree of their possession by you is how much you don't create deadline for people. How much you possess them is how much you have kept nature intact in the previous world. While being in that pleasure, the fear of death kept crossing my mind. The limit of pleasure kept crossing my mind, and the duel between the temporal and the permanent have caused an ambivalence within me. All of a sudden I saw a white sheep in the hand of someone I knew, somehow I knew that was death, incarnated in that white sheep. Even though nobody told me that, although nobody told me who that man was, but I know he was John the Baptist, peace be upon him, Yahya alayhi salam. His precise mission was to slaughter and kill the death. By the time he slaughters that sheep, the feeling of death disappeared from me, and the feeling of the temporal disappeared from me as well. There was such a joy that no one could possibly imagine. When John the Baptist had that action done, we didn't see blood, by the way, but we saw the spilling of liquid, sort of white liquid crystal, like a milk crystal or silver, or I cannot describe it. Actually, the spilling of that liquid was in the external world, but yet I felt like a soul was penetrating my body or penetrating my existence entirely, and then I felt that I was the eternity. The following statement concerning the 7 days are not in reference to external days, since in paradise the time does not control the believer. It is instead the believer who controls time. Therefore, when the name of a day is stated, it is the person's choice what day that is. Everybody has his or her individual day, and yet it is also collective day. It is very strange metaphor. On Saturday, children visit their parents, and parents visit their children on Sunday. On Monday, students visit their teachers, and teachers visit their students on Tuesday. On Wednesday, nations visit their prophets, and the prophets visit their nations on Thursday. Now, how can a person be in multiple places at the same time, and how can everybody enters his own paradise while being collectively with other people's paradises? The answer to these questions necessitates an encyclopedia, but suffice to say that it is not in our capability to describe such dimensions, which are all a part of the fourth dimension. On Friday, everyone in paradise visits God. It is a visit that transpires without steps, without location, without dimension, without sound, without time. The word Friday is with reference to man's time, not to God's time. For God is above and beyond time and space, which is merely one of the creations of God. After this contemplation, people become speechless, intoxicated by the eternal beauty of love that doesn't belong to the ego. It is instead the deep mystery that links creature to the creator. At this point, they forget about their pleasure they had in the garden, and they cannot find their way back to their initial palaces. They then receive help from the angels who take them back to their eternal palaces. When they look again at each other Each one is amazed by the new beauty they had or absorbed from God, and that is reflected in their faces. Everybody observes this in the other, and this beauty increases each time they visit God. In paradise, every tiny motion and every thought is a pure pleasure. There is untold pleasure in the contemplation of beauty, and there is the pleasure of sound, pleasure, odor, taste, etc. Every member or organ in the body has its own pleasure and enjoyment, as each wish crosses a person's mind, and before he can even verbalize it, that wish is fulfilled in an even better way than he fashioned it in his mind. And he marvels at how it happens. In the garden, the interaction between people is full of politeness, smiles, laughing, joy. The music comes from the blowing wind when it hits the trees, and it comes from the flowing water when it hits man's feet. Many questions. At this point of my reverie, I couldn't tell whether I was awake or I was in a dream. But I remember someone, I don't even see his physiognomy, he was warning me before rejoining my terrestrial world. While he was talking, I could even feel and see what he was talking about. He said to me, bear in mind that from the time of the resurrection, there will be no external light. Everyone is resurrected with his own light, which is proportionate to his degree of faith. Sadly, some people will walk in the darkness as a result of the obscurantism they voluntarily accepted during their terrestrial life. They won't see anything. Others will walk with a light that flickers like a candle. Sometimes it turns on and sometimes off, which reflects their alternating acceptance and refusal to the divine light. For some, their light will be brighter than the sun, but doesn't mean that those who happen to walk beside them will benefit from their light. It is a very weird and strange dimension. It is like a person who dreams and enjoys all sort of pleasure within his dream, but the person who happens to be next to the dreamer doesn't enjoy the same pleasure. It is the same thing when it comes to experiencing misery. Everybody will experience his own state of consciousness, even while each individual is in the midst of that multitudinous crowd. Some people won't be able to stand, others will variously walk and fall, others will pass by like a wind of the light. All of these results from the prior terrestrial behavior. At the end of my reveries, I realized that paradise and hell are in humans' own responsibility to create. Actually, they never wanted to show me hell or even spoke to me about it, but I felt it the same way you feel justice when you see injustice. And the reciprocity is indeed evident. Our terrestrial world is full of obscurity and obscurity. If we only know how to build paradise with good intentions. In our physical world, our metaphysical world will be alike and will be the same reflection in the celestial world. Thank you for sharing. I wish you the best. Another Odyssey to each one of you. And see you soon.